We are going to be going on to the second round right now, and we're going to start off for 5 minutes. Mr. Kram, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Minister, for appearing before the committee today. When it comes to air travel, I think it's important to distinguish between airlines and airports. That's because all of the help in the world for Canada's airlines won't do much good if they don't have any place to land or take off from. So I'm wondering if the Minister can tell the committee, is the government planning to do anything in particular for Canada's airports? Or is the plan to just let the smaller regional airports go bankrupt over the coming weeks and months?
Minister.
So thank you for the question, Mr. Kram. We're very much aware of the fact that the airports have been heavily impacted, because if you don't have passengers flying on airplanes, you don't have passengers in airports. So we're very conscious of that. We did provide a rent-free subsidy to 21 of the largest airports when this pandemic occurred last March for the whole of 2020. But we also realize that it's not just the big airports that have the largest volumes, but also small airports that have to be able to stay open if we're going to be able to fulfill our responsibilities in terms of regional routes. So yes, they are part of what we are looking at.
Mr. Kram.
Thank you. And on what date can we expect the government to release its plan to save Canada's airports?
Minister.
Well, I can't give you that date. All I can tell you is that we are working very hard on finalizing something, and as soon as you will know, going through the necessary processes that occur within a government, there are a certain number of steps that have to be followed, so I can't give you a precise date. But let me just say that it is something with which we are very seized.
Mr. Kram.
Okay, so I understand that you cannot give us a precise date. Will it be before Christmas?
As I say, I can't give you a precise date. Any minister or politician who is foolhardy enough to come out and give specific dates is usually going to turn out to be wrong. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we're doing it as quickly as possible.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, I have the floor again.
Yes, Mr. Kram, go ahead.
So other countries have released their plans to save their airports a long time ago. New Zealand announced their plan last March to help airports with their operating costs during the pandemic. The United States passed the CARES Act into law last March, which earmarked money specifically for airports. Today, the calendar says November, and the Canadian government still has not announced its plan to save our airports. So can you explain, why does it take the Canadian government 8 months and counting to do what the Americans and the New Zealanders did in 1 month?
Minister.
So to answer your question, you have to compare apples to apples. If you compare, for example, airports in Canada to airports in the United States, they operate differently. They receive funding from different sources. So it is important not to make direct comparisons between the two. As I said again, we are working very hard now that we have a good understanding of the impact on the air sector to come up with measures to address it. We did some things right from the beginning. For example, many airport employees were able to access the wage subsidy program. We're very proud of that. 21 airports were allowed to get a rent holiday for the year 2020. So we have put in place some measures, and in the case of northern airports serving remote areas, we have provided funding of $192 million to make sure that those 140 remote communities that are so important in the north of our country could still be able to rely on airlines, on air transport companies that could service them. So we have done some things as we moved along, but we're looking at the big picture now.
Mr. Kram.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell us if the plan to save the airline sector will include any help for rapid testing?
Well, that's a parallel activity that we've been working on with the airlines and with the airports as well. We in Canada worked very constructively, in fact, with the airlines and the airports to put in place measures that would minimize the possibility of infection when somebody did go to an airport and took a flight to another destination. So lots of safety precautions have been put in place, the wearing of masks, taking temperature, asking certain questions, trying to minimize contact. The airports have done a great job cleaning and sanitizing their airports. The airlines themselves clean the aircraft after each flight. The air ventilation system on board these aircraft are extremely efficient at minimizing the possibility of transmission, but we also have the rules with respect to wearing masks. Now, your question is very important. If we can find a rapid test that's reliable and efficient, it will allow us the potential to reduce that 14-day quarantine that exists when somebody comes in from outside the country, and that would make a very big difference. So we're watching very carefully what's happening at Toronto Airport, also the pilot test that we are involved with, the Government of Alberta at Calgary Airport.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Kram.